There's a term in scuba diving called buoyancy. Buoyancy. Do you know why it's important? Do you know what types there are? Do you know how to control it underwater? Hello, I'm James Phillips, and today I'm going to be talking to you about buoyancy. Some time ago, when I was doing my Dive Master course, I was actually in a facility called the Blue Hole in Santa Rosa, New Mexico. Some of you divers that are out there in the West might know the Blue Hole. The Blue Hole is an area that's probably at about 5,000 feet elevation. If you know anything about dive depth conversion, when you're at 5,000 feet elevation, your depth is deeper than what actually it is. So for example, if you're 20 feet theoretically in the water, you might be theoretically at 30 feet. In fact, the Blue Hole itself is only about, I can't remember, 60 or 70 feet deep. But when you're down at the very bottom, you're actually physically taking on the pressure as if you're down at 90 feet. Now, why am I telling you this? Well, I'm telling you this because when we take divers out there, the first dive that we have is probably one of the most challenging dives that they ever have in their life. We take them out to, in Blue Hole there, we take them out to a PVC piping that actually has 4 lines that come down with the PVC piping around the center, which is down about 15 feet, which is where we like the divers to stay on their first dive, between 15 feet. Now, keep in mind, at 15 feet, they're actually about 20 feet or so. So we don't like them go over 30 feet on their first dive. So what happens is we take them out there on their dive, and then we do some skills with them around the PVC piping. Then we take them on a little tour, and we actually show them where to go, where everything's at in a place. The dive instructor will actually lead the tour, and the dive master, myself, will actually follow behind. Now, what happens a lot of times is divers, when they first get in open water like that, they can't control their air, can't control their breathing, can't control their buoyancy. So guess what ends up happening? They end up sinking and diving down. I remember lots of times I would have to physically go diving after divers to bring them back up because I didn't want them to get to the point where they're over 30, 40 feet. And my job as a dive master really was like a corral. I was like a babysitter underwater, basically, you know. So I would have to go out and get these divers and make sure they were safe because they could not control their buoyancy. So I would actually have them inflate. I would have them breathe. I would have them do things like hover. I would actually have them do different things in diving so that they get up to it. Now, after a second dive or so, they get more used to it. I don't have to do much corralling at that point. Now, this particular buoyancy basically is 3 different types. There's positive, there's negative, and there's neutral. Now, those divers had negative buoyancy because they were sinking. Positive buoyancy is when you're at the top of the surface and you're kind of floating around. You have a lot of air in your BCD floating around. Neutral buoyancy is what you want to have when you're diving. You want to be nice and calm and straight. You want to control your breathing. You want to control your air. You want to control your depth and watch what your depth is. And always be in consideration of what your depth is. These new divers, they were not looking at their depth gauge very much. They were just all panicky because their first dive, they're out in the ocean there, out in the open water. Basically, they're out in the different surrounding than the pool. They were not used to it. Now, I have a blog, and the blog is going to be basically, it's down below here. You can actually click on it. You can actually read it. And in that, I'll be giving you some more detail about what buoyancy actually is. And I'll have some pictures of actually the Blue Hole and the PVC pipe that I was talking about. So I encourage you to go ahead and click on the link below. That'll take you to the blog, and it'll explain to you how positive buoyancy works. It'll show you a picture of positive buoyancy. It'll show you a picture of negative buoyancy. It'll tell you how it works. It tells you why it's important. But it is important as a diver, and it's probably one of the very first skills, other than not holding your breath underwater, very first skills that a new diver has to master is buoyancy. Because if you don't have proper buoyancy, you're always going to be skimming the bottom. If you're in an area that has murky bottom, you don't want to be on the bottom. You also want to hover around rocks when you're in deep water, like when you go out to Bahamas, stuff like that. The depth might be 300 feet, but you don't want to be at 300 feet. You want to be at 15 feet hovering around a rock looking at a pretty seahorse, something like that. So buoyancy is utterly important as a diver to maintain, to learn, and to get better at. So I encourage you basically to look at the blog below, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.